Okay, great. It is 2 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining the Department of Tourism, Hospitality, and Event Management's Tourism Tuesday. This weekly speaker series will highlight nationwide industry professionals showcasing their background and expertise in hospitality, tourism, and leisure. This week, we welcome Dean Cacciatore from Cacciatore Foods. Dean's food industry experience spans over 30 years, and he has been catering at UF and also the President's Office since 1994. So I'll now turn over the session to Dean. Thank you so much, Dean.
Sure. Well, hello, everyone, and thank you for today. I'm honored and grateful to be speaking to you. And I wanted to just start off with a little slideshow presentation and make sure I do this right. Well, thank you, Anna Marie. I appreciate that introduction. Like Anna Marie said, I've been catering since 1994 in the Gainesville area. We actually opened up our catering company back in 2001. And even though we've been catering here for a while, I'll go back with my background and kind of explain, why we've been here since 94, 95 catering. But we opened up our doors in July of 2001, and we still service our primary client, which is the president of the University of Florida. And a little bit on my background, I worked for Marriott Management Services prior to opening up our business, which is now Sodexo. I was a corporate executive chef for about 10 years, and I was actually transferred down here to Gainesville, Florida to assist with a large event, and it was supposed to be temporary, and it managed to be a permanent position. But that's how we started catering down here in 94. And from 94 to 2001, I was with Marriott. And then after that, I decided to open up our own business. Prior to Marriott, I worked with various hotels and restaurants, Sheraton Corporation for a little while. I opened up an independent restaurant right out of college. I was the executive chef there, and that was a eye-opening experience for sure. I went to school in Widener University, which is a school right outside of Philadelphia. I have a degree in hotel and restaurant management. And while I was in school, I continually worked in restaurants, hotels, casinos, pizzerias, and primarily in the back of the house. I kind of really found an interest and a love for food. I've always kind of felt comfortable in the back of the house. In kitchens, and that's kind of where my love is. Originally, I'm from Bayonne, New Jersey, and the way I actually got interested in cooking, I had a live-in Italian grandmother with 6 brothers and sisters, so she was constantly cooking. That was my introduction to the culinary arts, and believe it or not, I still use a lot of her recipes today in our business. So dating back to 1995, when we started with the University of Florida, our first client was the president of the University of Florida. And back then, that was Dr. John Lombardi. And since then, we've had the pleasure to work with 4 presidents up until President Fox, our current president. So we've had the pleasure and the unique experience of working with many different presidents throughout the years. Our main commercial kitchen is in Southwest Gainesville. We also have satellite commercial kitchens on campus. We have one in Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, the Powell University House, and the Dasburg House. So we have three locations on campus. We are awarded exclusivity to all those locations, so no other caterer can go in there. We have a contract with UF, and it's an ongoing contract that we have with them. We do probably about 150 plus events a year, and that's just with UF. Our first and foremost client is the University of Florida, and we kind of give them first right of refusal. And then after that, if we have some availability, we may or may not take on additional events. It just depends on what we have going on, what time of year it is, And that pretty much determines our availability. So today I wanted to talk about opening up a new food and beverage operation, and some of the highlights and some of the non-highlights. 80% of new food and beverage operations fail within the first year. So with that statistic, it can be pretty daunting and might be deterring to a lot of folks thinking about going into the restaurant and food and beverage business. And I wanted to identify, in my opinion and experience, 4 types of people that should not open up a food and beverage operation. The first type of person that I believe shouldn't open up a food and beverage operation is if you think you're going to go into a restaurant, opening up a restaurant, and you're going to get quick rich. That is the #1 reason why you should not open up a restaurant. Our margins traditionally are very, very low, anywhere from 5 to 15%. And the only way really to make money is by volume. So we really have to grind and make sure that our event numbers and number of events are conduent to exceed those margins so we can make money. Traditionally, it takes about 3 to 5 years to recoup your investment. So you're not making any money anytime soon. It definitely takes some time and patience to get the money back that you initially invest in. The second type of person that I believe should not open up a food and beverage operation is if you're the type of person that is not a people-pleasing person or doesn't like to be around people. This is kind of what we do. We make sure that the customer feels welcome, comfortable, and has everything that they need. I tell my staff all the time when we're at events, your job is to anticipate the guest's needs even before they know it. So if you see somebody struggling, looking for a napkin, you need to go to the service station and pull a cloth napkin over and bring it to them. So it's our job to make sure that we're very attentive to the customer needs. We're in the customer service business that just happens to serve food and beverage. Our primary business is pleasing the customer. We're only as good as our last event. The people definitely, word of mouth is the best form of advertising, and that's what people talk about. For the most part, when you leave an event, it depends what that type of event is, but people really aren't going to remember the program, the speaker, but they're going to remember what type of food and what type of service they received while they were there. That builds loyalty and following, and it helps separate us from our competition. So in terms of exceeding their high standards, that's what this business is all about. It's exceeding their standards and making sure that it separates us from the competition. The third type of person that I feel should not be opening up a food and beverage operation.
I don't think we can share your screen here.
Oh, you can't see me?
Yeah, if you could just click on the bottom there. And just click the share screen option. There we go. Sorry about that.
Better?
Yep, you're good.
Sorry, everybody. Let's see. The third type of person that I feel should not open up a food and beverage operation is if you do not want to work long hours. My first job out of college, I had the privilege of opening up an independent restaurant in Wilmington, Delaware. And that for sure was a learning experience. There were days that leading up to the opening that we worked through the night. We worked from sunset to sunrise, and definitely long hours. As an owner of a business, I can tell you too that, you know, there's many days that you bring work home all the time. Or if you're working a long event and you have another one the next day, easily you can exceed 15 to 18 hours per day, especially when you're busy. And that's the same thing for a restaurant. In many ways, you're married to the business, and a lot of the time you need to be there to make sure that your standards are being met and making sure that all the jobs are being done. You're also a fireman. You need to expect the unexpected. My job a lot of the time when I'm at events, my team is doing what they're supposed to be doing, but I'm running around putting out fires, whether it's power outages, whether it's somebody needs something unexpected. But there are many, many unexpected things that happen to pop up, especially during events. Deliveries do not come on time. Third-party vendors don't deliver tables that are needed for events. So there are many things that happen that you need to be ready for. Building a team is probably one of the most important things you could do to help you alleviate some of those long hours. And that takes a tremendous amount of time. You need to invest long hours in making sure that they understand your philosophy and buy off on it. So when the day comes when you do take a day off, you do have peace of mind that your team is going to take care of the business as if you would. That's not to say that they're a replacement for you, but over time, they can certainly alleviate a lot of the day-to-day operations that will free you up for doing other things like planning and forecasting and looking to the future. The fourth type of person that I feel should not open up a restaurant or food and beverage operation is a person that does not really listen to other people. And when I say that, I mean customers and staff. If you do not take the time to really listen to your customers, there's a good chance that you're not going to be in business very long. And the same thing with staff. If the staff comes to you with suggestions on ways of doing things a little bit more efficiently that'll benefit you and your business in the long run, it's in your best interest to definitely listen to them. Same thing with the customers. If you introduce a new menu item that you feel for whatever reason is an absolute home run, but yet you do not receive positive feedback, there's a good chance that you should maybe think about taking that menu item off your menu. Complacency kills business. Being stagnant, not moving forward, listening to advice and information and feedback that you get from your customers. You need to take the time to evolve, change, and adapt to current situations. And we have a perfect example of that right now. COVID has completely changed the face of the food and beverage operation. For us, it equates no catering. We've done 3 events since the middle of March. So we've had to rethink and change our business model. Right off the bat, we changed our catering menus to more friendly pickup and drop-off items as opposed to full-service catering events. We use our shop, our commercial space. We invite in our vendors. We have an organic farmer that comes in twice a week, and he sells organic produce right out of our shop. So we're sort of like a grocery store to some degree. And then right now we have plans to transition and open up a takeout and some additional retail. So since the catering isn't there right now, we're evolving, seeing what we have in our operation, and we're looking to adapt that and see really what is the new norm for the food and beverage industry. And right now it's takeout, delivery, and pickup. So that's what we're transitioning to right now. So in conclusion, in my opinion, those are the 4 types of people that may want to stay away from the food and beverage industry. That's not to say that there's not more, but in my opinion, if you have any of those traits, you may want to rethink the business that you're getting into. On the other hand, if you're one of those type of people that have all these traits and attributes, there's a good chance that you'll be in that 20% success rate, and then hopefully have a long life or longevity in the business. So if you're one of those folks, and I believe that there is not many industries like ours, I think we have one of the most resilient and resourceful staff that there is. I truly believe that there can be success, especially on the other side of what we're dealing with now. But at this point, Anna Marie, if you want to open it up to some questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Oh, we can't hear you.
Sorry, got it. So, uh, so I'll open up the floor to questions. If you don't feel comfortable speaking your question over the camera, feel free to type out your question in the group chat and I will read your question. Also, if you do feel comfortable speaking your question, I ask you to turn on your camera because we want to see you. We want to see your face and know who you are. So I'll turn it over to you. And thank you, Dean, so much.
You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Molly, and I'm an event management major at UF. And I was just wondering, from like an event planner's perspective, like what role do they have in like a catering company, or like what tasks or jobs would they really do?
In our particular, I could speak for our business and kind of how we do it. They definitely have a role. We offer the services of planning out the event for the customer or the client. But a lot of times, if it's not a client that we've done business with before, it's not uncommon for an event planner to come to us, for example, with a bride and groom looking to host a wedding. And they work more or less as a liaison between the caterer and some other third-party vendors as well to the client. So they do a lot of the legwork and just kind of pass off to us what their expectations are as far as the catering. But in our particular business, we offer that service as well too. We take the time to meet with the client. We coordinate all third-party vendors. We make sure that the venue has the adequate information regarding the setup and any special instructions that they may have. But there's definitely room out there, in my opinion, for quality event planners, especially here in town. There is definitely a need for folks here that can be that liaison between the vendors and the client.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure.
I have a question. What are some of the changes that you've seen over the years with some of the trends with food and beverage and catering, maybe with the university or with the business, moving from like all the way back from like 1994 to now? And what do you see as far as like trends moving forward with food and beverage and where we're going with the industry?
Well, in terms of food, there's definitely been a big transition over to sourcing locally and organic foods. There's been a lot on the green restaurants and green standards. People are definitely more educated and aware of the different foods and the type of foods out there. So I would say that's first and foremost the biggest one over the last couple of years. The second trend that I see coming back, and you see it a little bit more and more, especially on the larger events, comfort foods. A lot of people are looking for those comfort foods that they grew up with, and Ron is giving the thumbs up. That is a huge trend right now. We do a nice little appetizer that's little grilled cheese sandwiches with tomato soup, and we serve them in shot glasses. Or we do little lobster macaroni and cheese shooters as well too. So a lot of different ways it definitely is coming back to comfort foods. We serve this one dish up in the President's Skybox for football games. It's called the deconstructed shepherd's pie. And what we do is we serve the meat and vegetables on one side, and then we have somebody out there piping out with potatoes and corn on top of the dish if folks so desire. So definitely comfort foods is a very big one as well too.
Okay, we do have a question in the chat. It says, thanks for joining us, Dean. What positive impacts, if any, do you think will come out of this pandemic as it relates to the food and beverage industry? And how can an operator capitalize on these positive impacts?
Right off the bat, I think if you're already established in your community, I think the majority of the people out there want to support you. They just need to make sure that you're open and open for business. So I think the folks that you have a long-term relationship with are definitely going to come out and support you regardless. So I think it's just doing it in a safe manner that will allow you to continue and to evolve and to open up again. So I think that that's sort of impactful right away. The other thing too is there might be some opportunity out there for folks to come in and maybe capitalize on a market that is not being that's not being met. You know, just like in larger markets with real estate, it's a good time if you wanted to open up a restaurant and you had a particular theme or niche that isn't being met by that particular community. You might be able to find a good deal on either leasing out or renting out some space. The thing about restaurants and catering business, you don't necessarily need a whole lot of capital to get started. If you can put some money together, get some investors, and you could sign a lease, you could lease equipment, and then you could buy food on credit for a little while. So if you, for a minimal amount of resources, you could relatively open up a business. Now, that's not to say that you're not going to have any obstacles along the way, but in terms of opportunity, there might be something out there. So I think that we're going to be seeing, although unfortunately we're seeing a lot of restaurants and food and beverage industry operations closing, I think we're also going to see a few more open up.
Dean, Ron here. I have two questions. I'll give you the first one. In restaurant business, the national publication I saw this week, where 240 billion was lost so far by restaurants. I was wondering if you know how the local area. I heard of one restaurant, the Italian restaurant, excuse me, restaurant across from 43rd Street Deli closing, but I haven't heard of any others. I was wondering if you heard how the local pulse is.
Unfortunately, I do know a few that have closed up just because of what's going on. The most notable one is at Leonardo 706. They were here long before I got here, and they were a staple down off of 13th heading towards Maine. And they've been there, I mean, they got to be there 30 something years, and they just weren't able to sustain what's going on. They weren't built, their model wasn't built to be able to transition to takeout. So unfortunately they closed up. There's a bakery that we use sometimes from time to time when our baker isn't able to do some of those high-end novelty cakes called Bakery. And they recently just closed as well too. So unfortunately, you hear a lot of folks that are closing up. My neighbor in Hale Plantation, Gordy, he owns Lime Rock Restaurant, Lime Rock Road. And up the street, he had an Italian restaurant called Fresco. And the landlord, unfortunately, wasn't willing to work with him. So he had no choice to close the doors as well. Our restaurant industry employs, food and beverage industry employs almost 15 million people. And right now for us, we had to furlough a lot of those people just because we don't have events. So it is a challenging time. And if you don't have the resources to kind of sustain and kind of wait this thing out, unfortunately, we're going to see a lot more restaurants and food and beverage operations and even hotels close, in my opinion. So, just need to be resourceful, be very smart on spending, keeping costs down, and be able to reinvent yourself, be able to take advantages of things that will help you sustain and hopefully maybe change into a new business model completely for you. I'd never had an intention of reopening a restaurant a couple of years ago, but now it seems to be the smartest and best option moving forward.
Dean, what would you say to students who are really quite interested in the food and beverage industry, but they have, their parents coming down on them saying, this really isn't an industry. It's just, you can't be a bartender for your whole life. And that's kind of what I think about it.
Well, years ago, well, not even years ago, a couple of months ago, bartending wasn't too bad of a occupation. There was many years where bartenders made more money, than most folks in other professions. So, and I really truly believe that those jobs are going to come back. So I think if that is your passion and if that is something you want to do, you may need to pivot a little bit and change your plan or trajectory for now. But I still think and believe in our industry wholeheartedly. I know it's going to come back stronger. I know that there's going to be tremendous amounts of opportunity. Some of those folks that may have been furloughed or lost their jobs may have went to a different industry. So once, this vaccine comes out and we come back strong, there may be tremendous amount of opportunity. And right now, unfortunately, it's kind of the sit back and wait kind of syndrome. But I truly believe that our industry is going to come back. And for anybody thinking about going into hospitality as a whole, I believe it's still a great investment in your future. You just may need to pivot a little bit and be creative on keeping up with the trends and what is able to sustain, maybe not just now, but in the future, and how those changes may impact our business as a whole.
Yeah, I wanted to get to you about that. Like, do you believe that once the vaccine comes out, everything in the hospitality industry will just shoot up, like spike dramatically for a moment for like a good time, because everybody who had held off their vacations, who had put off all their special events, can now just go and do that thing, and then that's just like a whole bunch of influx of demand for hospitality things like catering or housing or lodging? Do you think that'll sustain itself for like maybe a good while after a vaccine comes out?
Well, we're betting on it 100%. And I really believe it will. I definitely believe it will. Luckily, we're in a state where our governor is a little bit more pro-business than a lot of other states. Our bars are open at 50% capacity right now. And I truly believe once that vaccine hits, I think we're going to see an insurgence, sure, of a lot of our industry coming back, and coming back quickly. Like you said, those people that may be delayed going to Disney World because they're afraid they're not going to be able to get in, or I think a lot of people are going to be heading to Disney World very quickly once this vaccine shoots up, to be honest with you.
Thank you.
Hey, Dean, I can ask you a question.
Hey, Joe.
So if you were either a senior studying hospitality or had just graduated and were looking to do something in the industry, what would your move be if you were in the shoes of a 20, 22, 23-year-old?
Full disclosure, I know Joe very well. Joe used to work for me, and I still consider him working for me. But Joe, to be honest with you, I would do exactly what you've done. I would go back to school if you could do that right now. But if not be, I would look to see where you could maybe, if you had the resources, maybe gain some experience, either working somewhere that would be able to take you, or learn about a new trait that might enhance your marketability in the future. I talk about this in some other courses with some other chefs that, before I was married and before while I was in school, I was at Widener, and I was taking hotel and restaurant management courses, but they didn't have a strong culinary program. So what I did was I was working in a hotel at the time in a kitchen, and I got to know the vendors very well. And I used to go to their operations and work a day or two at their operations. I worked for a fishmonger for a couple of days. I worked in a produce distribution place for a couple of days. And just that, I mean, that to me was priceless education that you couldn't have paid enough money for. Now, I didn't make any money, but just the information that I gathered and just the skills and knowledge that I was able to obtain by just doing that was incredible. So my advice would be, if you do have the resources to do something like that, that would be the best advice I can give right now.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dean. And thanks for everything always.
Sure.
Hey, Dean, I have a question for you.
Another guy. Hey, Sean.
Yeah. How's it going? So I was going to ask, what is your favorite thing about being in the food and beverage business?
I don't know if I could just pinpoint it to one thing. I mean, obviously I have a love for food in general. Over the past, I don't know, maybe about 10, 12 years, I've really been involved with sourcing locally and learning about some different companies here in our backyard. I love talking to farmers. I love talking to different vendors who have a passion, and even more so a passion than I do. A great partnership that I have with UF, I'm able to work with the College of IFAS. We developed, well, I didn't develop it, but a gentleman who developed a particular tomato variety here at UF called Garden Gem tomatoes. We put that into market. We actually created a sauce based on that. Anything like that. I've been out to Cedar Key, and I've worked with the clam farmers out there with their Venus clams out there. And so to me personally, if I had to say one thing though, it would be getting to know folks in their particular fields that are just as excited about food as I am.
Awesome.
Good to see you, Sean.
Good seeing you too.
Hi, Dean. I have a question. I'm concerned about food waste. It's going to be a big issue in catering department. So do you have any experience in dealing with food waste in your company, and just throw them away or do some recycle things or limit the amount of food? Can you share me your experience? Thank you.
Sure. Well, in my business, unfortunately, you cannot run out of food. That's not an option, and especially that's my philosophy. So unfortunately, there is going to be food waste after events in particular. It's just what you do with that waste kind of determines if it really is waste. First and foremost, we feed our staff, and Sean and Joe can attest to that they get fed very well when they work events for me. Aside from that, if the food is still safe and of good quality, we work with different groups around town. It's not uncommon for us to go to St. Francis House and drop off food over there, or another church or somewhere locally that we know that they can benefit from it. But it's just for us, we need to make sure that food is safe, and safe is the most important thing.
Dean, do you have a personal opinion on like shared economy, like Uber Eats, DoorDash, those types of services?
It's funny you say that, because in kind of recreating our model and changing our brand, we've looked into some of those companies. It's just hard for me to really allow a third-party company to deliver food. I just feel and this is just a personal preference because I have no experience with it. I just feel that once that product leaves my restaurant or building, I have no control over it. And if there's a problem because of delivery or mishandling, ultimately, I'm going to be responsible and have to pay for that. So I'm not a big proponent of that. And then on top of that, the fees that they take are pretty incredible. So if I'm not able to do the delivery myself, I don't know if I would be inclined to use one of those services. And that's just me personally. And like I said, I don't have experience with that, but it's just from what I've heard from other folks and other people in the business as well too, that if you're not set up to do delivery yourself, it might not be the smartest thing to do in the long run.
Do we have any other questions from the group? Dean is a wealth of knowledge, so.
You do any internships?
You know, we do internships. Both Joe and I think Sean did an internship with us. But yes, we offer internships. Unfortunately, right now, we don't have anything going on.
Hmm.
We're hoping that events will pick up in the spring for sure. And as soon as that happens, I would love for you to contact me. And I'd be happy to talk to anybody about a potential internship. There's been multiple times where we've had maybe 3 or 4 people at the same time doing an internship. So it's definitely something that we do offer.
Hey, Dean, Ron here. How about a plug for your new F&B class?
Oh, sure. Yeah, yes. I've been privileged and lucky to have the opportunity to develop a introduction to food and beverage operations and management course that I'm developing this fall and hope to launch this spring. So right now I'm working with some wonderful people like Anna Marie and Ron in terms of developing this course. It's going to be an online course, and I hope to bring a lot of my industry knowledge and firsthand experiences into the class and really portray real life different scenarios and different types of situations. I feel that education is tremendously important, and not only the education you get from the university and school, but the on-hands education that you get from working and just, you know, going from different establishment and kind of learning the rights and wrongs of different operations and taking the best and leaving the worst from each place. And over the past, I don't know how old, maybe 40 something years, 40 years I've been doing this. It's been my first job. My first love, and I'm privileged to say that I really don't work a day in my life because I thoroughly enjoy what I do, and I hope to bring some of that or portray some of that in the classroom.
So any students that don't have their spring schedule filled out, think about F&B management.
Thank you, Ron.
We actually do have another question. So what do you also think about ghost or cloud kitchens? Do you think they're here to stay or just a fad?
I think they're here to stay as long as it's cost effective. I think that they are definitely a current fad for sure, but it's not. I definitely see a need or a niche for that to continue with pop-up restaurants and different things along that nature. But I don't know if it's going to be sustainable. Sort of like I equivocated a little bit to kind of like the food trucks and different things along that nature. I mean, it could be a viable, you know, long-term business, or it may just be a fad. But I think just as long as it's cost effective, I think they'll be around.
Great. And then any possible insider knowledge about football cake?
Oh my gosh, you guys, your guess is as good as mine right now. Last couple of weeks, we've seen a lot of schools have football. And I think that, UF is being very cautiously optimistic. I know President Fox is being very cautiously optimistic as well, too. We can only hope that we will have some sort of a football season here. So if I was a betting man, I'd say 70% that we're going to have a football game on October 3rd. That's kind of where I'm at today. But I think a lot will depend on these coming weeks and some of the fallout from the last couple of weeks of having people in the stands.
All right. So if we do end up, if you do win that bet, then should we look to you if we're in the stadium to see some catering around there?
You certainly can. You certainly can. The one thing though is we're responsible just for one suite at the football stadium, and it's the president's suite, and that's kind of by invitation only. But somehow, if you want to get your name on that list, I'm sure if you open up your checkbook, I feel like there's always room for one more up in that suite.
Good to know. Well, Dean, we truly appreciate you joining us for our Tourism Tuesday. And if anybody would like to get in touch with Dean or enroll in his class, which is, a full 16 weeks, it's even better, please do so. And if you have any questions, you can contact Dean directly. Dean, do you have any plugs for communication or?
Anyway, what I could do is, let me see, can I put up a slide maybe? Maybe somebody could do a screenshot. Let's see if I can do this. You could text, email, or just ask Joe or Sean how to get a hold of me. I hope I didn't discourage anybody about the food and beverage industry. I just, I feel like there's a lot of folks out there that just feel like that may be an easy way to make some money, and it's not. Especially those folks who have worked or are working or still work in the industry. They know firsthand it definitely is a grind, and even though you may be working in one of those facilities, you may think, oh, I could do this. I could be the owner. I could take this on. You very well may be able to do that, but I highly encourage you to do your homework before you put all your eggs in that basket.
Great, as well. And also Joe says, if you have the opportunity to work or intern with Dean, definitely do it. So Sean also agrees. So thank you so much, Dean. Really appreciate it. All right, well, thank you again for joining our Tourism Tuesday, everybody. And we will see you next week. We actually have Lizendra Danforth. She's an event planner with the College of Pharmacy at UF. So we'll see you next Tuesday at 2 o'clock. Thank you again for joining.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Bye.